students and teachers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to each and every one of you. We are pleased to welcome you to India Today HR Insights presented by Presidency University. I'm Sonal Khetarpal, Senior Associate Editor at India Today magazine, and I will be your host for today's event. Everyone, let's give a warm round of applause to our speakers who have come here especially for HR Insights. Post the pandemic, the world of work has changed dramatically. In today's environment, employees expect more from their work. Just a salary is no longer enough. They are looking for growth, flexibility, and work-life balance. And not just a job that pays the bills. This shift calls for organizations to do much more to drive retention and foster loyalty. Moreover, Gen AI is here. I guess we all use it quite a bit, and is making a significant impact in several job roles, including recruitment, content creation, customer care, and a lot of rote learning jobs. And it is driving efficiencies for organizations at scale. As expectations evolve and technology transforms, the workplace, the way employees work, create, and collaborate is also changing. The India Today HR Insights will focus on key trends such as creating an inclusive workforce and redefining talent acquisition strategies for the workplace of the future. To this end, we have HR leaders from diverse sectors, including technology, retail, IT, service providers, and more, to engage in a meaningful dialogue and chart the course towards this new world of work. Now, without further delay, let me invite India Today's Managing Editor, MG Arun, to kick off this power-packed conclave with his opening remarks. MG, over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students, a very warm welcome once again to the India Today HR Insights being held in association with the Presidency University, Bengaluru. We really appreciate that many of these professionals have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us this morning. We welcome you all. Let me also extend a hearty welcome to this big gathering of students of the university and their teachers. We really appreciate your presence at this event today. Let me also thank the management and staff of the Presidency University for creating such a platform for interaction and idea exchange on a topic that is of utmost relevance today. Today, there is also another significance, and that happens to be something that all of us would like to forget. Today marks the anniversary of something which had shaken our lives to a huge extent. Can somebody say what it was? Yes. The lockdown was announced exactly 5 years ago on March 24th, 2020, on an evening. So starting today, starting March 25th, there was a 21-day lockdown which all of us underwent, and subsequently there were multiple times when we had to stay indoors, something which really changed, redefined our lives, our businesses, and our livelihoods. But I think all of us are fortunate that we have gotten over that situation, and today we are here to discuss the future. This edition of India Today HR Insights follows the success of a series of such events we had in Bengaluru and Chennai last year. In a highly disruptive world of business, where power has been displaced from its central position to decentralized silos that will still have to operate as a whole for higher efficiency and productivity, HR plays a very vital role. The rules of the HR game, as we know, are changing. HR professionals are compelled to redefine their roles at a time when traditional HR tasks like recruitment and training are being outsourced. The rapid pace of technological change means HR must move beyond traditional practices and embrace digital solutions. As businesses expand globally, HR professionals must manage a more diverse and geographically dispersed workforce. Last but not the least, the rise of the gig economy and remote work requires HR to rethink talent management and employee engagement strategies. I know that there is immense curiosity among students who have gathered here today about the opportunities that arise in this disruptive state of things and how the application of technology tools such as artificial intelligence would impact their hiring prospects. There is also a rising concern that AI would replace jobs in the marketplace, while at the same time give rise to new opportunities. But that will mean equipping oneself with new skills, while for academic institutions like the Presidency University, it would mean designing curriculums that capture the ever-changing technological landscape to create a future-ready generation. There is also a rising interest in job opportunities in the HR space, just as there has been interest in opportunities in engineering, management, and finance. To talk about all these, we have a stellar panel of experts today with us, drawn from across some of the best companies involved in a range of businesses. We do hope the deliberations today will be of immense value, not only to students present here, but also to the readers of India Today magazine, as well as our viewers in the digital space. Once again, I thank everyone present here and the Presidency University management for making this event possible. Thank you.
Thank you, MG, for very nicely setting the tone for this event. Our first session of the day is a keynote address titled Gearing Up for a Disruptive World, emphasizing the need for adaptability, innovation, and resilience in the face of disruption, whether it be in technology, global markets, and societal shifts. To share his insights, I would like to call on stage one of our HR veterans, Subhankar Roy Chowdhury, Executive Director and Head HR Asia Pacific, Lenovo. Everyone, let's give him a warm round of applause to welcome him to the stage. I would also like to call India Today's Managing Editor, MG Arun, back on stage to moderate the keynote address.
Thank you very much.
Let me give a short introduction of this industry veteran whom Sonal just talked about. Subhankar Roy Chowdhury is the Executive Director and Head HR, Lenovo Asia Pacific. He's an HR leader and speaker with varied experiences in reimagining leadership, culture, and talent practices to create a human work environment in the digital age. Prior to his current role, he led Lenovo's global HR strategy, HR analytics, and workforce location strategy. Subhankar has led HR transformation projects, incubated HR functions, steered market expansions, and led mergers and acquisitions at Lenovo and Nokia in HR leadership roles in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. In his consulting career with PwC, IBM, and Siemens, Subhankar helped clients leverage HR technology solutions, digital HR, and HR analytics to build employee experience, efficiency, and effectiveness. Subhankar takes special interest in the impact of digitization and AI on the workforce for the future. Based in Singapore, he advocates and champions diversity and inclusion, sustainability, and philanthropic pursuits in the Asia-Pacific region. Over to you, Subhankar.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Arun, for this warm welcome. I'm very excited to be here in front of all of you. More excited because, A, it's great to be back with the students, because that's the future of our nation, and that's the future of humankind. And secondly, this topic is of great interest to me because it's about gearing up for the future and what disruptions that we see in front of us. Many of you would have seen the lovely posters as you walk inside your campus, the banners for today's session, and you would recognize that I'm already disrupted. No glasses, no hair. Jokes apart, when we look at the topic of disruption, there are a number of themes that come to your mind. But what exactly is disruption? I would like to check if I can get some help, how to get this up. Sorry, the clicker. Oh, okay, somebody's doing that for me. Thank you so much. So what exactly is disruption about? Now, when we look at disruption, it has to be long-term, it has to be sustainable, it has to be impactful, and it touches multiple people across the world that for a long time has a ripple-down effect in number of other factors. So when we look at disruption, there are many different kinds of disruption that we see around us. So let's focus on a few that I personally think are really important, impactful, and specifically meaningful for the audience of today. If you go to the next slide, please. We are already disrupted, but thanks for bearing with me. So as the slide comes up, let me share with you a bit more about myself, because beyond what Mr. Arun shared with you, that when we look at careers today, the careers are getting disrupted. My personal journey for the last 3 decades have been full of disruption. I started my career with a large Indian multinational manufacturing company, and those were the days of Y2K, and suddenly I wanted to be a part of the technological revolution that the world was seeing around. So I took some choices, some risks that later on I realized has been an immense learning experience. So multiple times in my career and our careers, whether we want to disrupt it ourselves or whether the world around us forces us to be disrupted. And that's one thing I would like to leave you back with. So if I were to ask all of you, if you can raise up your hands, how many of you would think that AI is going to disrupt you in the next 2 years, not too far down the line? Can I see the raise of hands? That's around, I would peg it around 40 to 50%. But what I would like to share with you as we move forward is that the reality could be a little more different. So a lot of talk is about AI, and I will spend a lot of my first initial parts of my presentation on how AI is rising force and how it is disrupting us, that what we do on our day-to-day lives and the work and the world around us. So first, let me share with you that the good news first. Now the good news is we are looking at a significant increase in job rises. A Bain study for India recently, last month, spoke about 2.3 million new jobs coming up. I wanted to do a slight transition, but I think you are seeing everything in one page. But that's the good news, that there is a significant opportunity, and Mr. Arun also spoke about it. But there is going to be short-term pain. As you can see below, there are a number of companies today which are rebalancing their workforce, re-energizing, revitalizing, reshaping the capability by looking at what skills they need for the future, and that's the short-term pains that's going through. And many of these companies I have actually deleted and not really showing it here because it's not the interest that who they are, but the reality is that we will all go through some level of adjustment when we look at the immediate future. That brings to a core fundamental question: what can you do today to ensure that you are preparing ourselves for the future as students, as employees, as leaders and managers who are seeing this wave of AI engulfing us, and it's not a choice. If I look at the second slide, this is a slide from Lenovo's AI transformation. If you look at the first part of the slide, which talks about AI agents. Now, these AI agents is all about generative AI. For the last 2 years, we have been working to leverage, deploy generative AI in many of our business tools and processes. But it is now a passé. As we look at the next 2 years, we are looking at how do you embed AI into our workflows, which is where the AI agents are coming in. At least we aim to be 40% of our business processes to be run by AI agents. This is a game changer. And this is what would be what we consider as a major disruption. The organizations that you saw on the previous slide are examples of how use cases are being developed so that AI agents are significantly either driving decision-making process, or they are increasing the customer, or they are helping the organization to be successful in the business. There are different ways where organizations are adopting AI. Talking about adopting AI, Lenovo does a number of surveys with the CIOs. Recently, we unveiled the CIO playbook. And one of the things that 900 CIOs across Asia Pacific has voiced out, that they are going to be taking on some level of investment in AI. What we also see is that large organizations are aggressively pursuing the AI journey, and the smaller organizations are following suit. The examples that you saw where there is a churn of the number of capability transformation that we see are all large companies. They have got deep pockets, they have got the expertise, they have the know-how, and they have the risk to appetite to experiment and being the first mover advantage. Looking at some of the technological companies based out across the world, you would see a very interesting phenomenon. And those who dabble in stocks or invest in stocks and investing, you would see that the net income of many of these companies are actually going very high. Their revenues are going up, but at the same time, there is a tightening of workforce. This is a phenomenon we haven't seen before. We've always seen tightening of the belt during the COVID times where there's a reduction of workforce, when the organization is either not doing well in the top line or the bottom line. But this is a very new phenomenon to me, that when you are seeing a better revenue, better income and margins, at the same time, we are seeing a decrease in the workforce. But I said earlier, which I feel personally, that this is going to be a temporary phenomenon, that we would see some level of adjustment and pain as we see the organization significantly ramping up to AI in the world that we are embracing. The next topic, which is the second disruption I would like to talk about, is on demographics. Is the demographics that we have in India today is a talent dividend, or is it not a talent dividend? All of you are aware that India is perhaps one of the youngest countries in the world. Our median age is 28 to 29 years. We have a very high working population, and increasingly we have a number of young population coming into the workforce who are less than 25 moving into the workforce. So with such a large population with us, it is imperative that we are able to harness, optimize, and make use of the great resource that we have with us. But for us to go there, there's a significant amount of work that the government, organization, societies, institutions like yours have to do to prepare the workforce for the future. If that were not to happen, we would be sitting on a sticking time bomb of unemployment, where we have a large number of workforce coming in for employability, but there are not efficient skills to manage to get employability for the demand that it has. That's a very, very important focus for all of us to work together. How do we bridge the skill gap? Government of India, of course, has a number of programs on employability, on youth, and many others have skill development. But it has to be a concerted effort by the organizations, by the institutions, and the government to make it happen together. But on the other side of the fence, I would also like to share that there are many countries across the world which is challenged with aging population. Now, India, by 2050, will have 350 million aging above 60 years of old age population. That's a very, very big number, but still very, very far away, 25 years from now. But in my role, I happen to travel to many markets, Japan, Singapore, South Korea. They're grappling with less and less of young people in the workforce. Across the developed world, the retirement age is increasing. There are various kinds of unhappiness in the workforce with a higher retirement age, because in many of the developed countries, the pension comes after the retirement age. Let's take the example of Japan. While the retirement age is at 60, the pension kicks in at 65. So between 60 to 65 years of age, the government of Japan encourages companies to keep the workforce by reduced salary and advisory role. And it is the right of the employee to work, and it would be legal to have somebody leave involuntarily if you want to. Similarly, if I look at Singapore or South Korea, there are ways and means in which the government is encouraging either to ensure the workforce who have completed 60 or 65 years to remain employed. This helps in having a better mental well-being and a physical well-being. This helps the nation building. At the same time, it decreases the cost of healthcare, decreases the cost of pension. India is not there yet, but we will have to be prepared as we progress for the next 2 decades with such a large number of elderly population coming into the Indian workforce, Indian population. And demographics is going to be a very key factor, and it is also getting shaped by AI. We do have a belief that AI in the future will replace a lot of human beings. Let me share one example. In one of the meetings in South Korea, which was last month, I was in a similar conference. It was a Lenovo conference called the Lenovo Tech World, where we invite a lot of corporate chiefs to come and hear from us, and interestingly, the topic was in AI. When there was a tea break, something very special that I noticed. As you see that in the tea break, you are served with tea and cookies. There was a robot who was moving around in the room with a number of cookie plates, and there were those guests who were picking up the cookies. There was another robot which was actually carrying the pamphlets of the different sponsors who had sponsored the events. So these are the ways where we see that robotic and automation and AI are replacing human beings. Another example I would like to share that we have a mobile business in Japan. I visited the factory, which is a little far away from mainland Tokyo. And I had lunch with my colleague who runs HR for the factory, a Japanese colleague. As I was ordering, firstly, of course, it is now everything is digitized in QR code, even in India. But what was also fascinating is the food came by a robot rather than a human being when it served. The plates were stacked in with a little robot that walked from the kitchen to our table. And after the meal got over, again, when we pressed the button, we put the used plates back, and it took it back to the kitchen. And these are the simple ways where we see the implication of robotics, automation, and AI coming to replace human beings because in those markets, there are just no people. Talking about these markets, you would wonder, why is the world not taking younger people from markets like India, Middle East, Africa, where there's Indonesia, where there's a significantly young population? And that brings me to my this topic, that the world is seeing another disruption, which is called the deglobalization. When I was in my college days, the world was getting increasingly globalized. India got liberalized in the 90s, and suddenly we had huge amount of manufacturing, trade, finance, everything coming together. Manufacturing moving to China, India, and various parts of the world. R&D facilities, global capability centers. But suddenly we see, for the post-COVID specifically, when this started, what is called a deglobalization. And what's driving this deglobalization? Firstly, there's a lot of trade war. You have seen after the recent US elections, the entire tariffs, because tariffs are like taxes. It increases the price of the goods, it increases inflation. The second, of course, is about geopolitics. We are moving towards bipolar world where we have to take sides and choices. Thirdly, we look at economic nationalism. Every nation wants to be self-sufficient, and every nation wants to ensure that they have the entire resources within there. There are policies and programs framed in different markets. We have Make in India, Indonesia has Make in Indonesia, we have different kinds of support given by the government to induce and encourage manufacturing, R&D, and capability centers being hosted in the country. That is a reversal trend. And lastly, we see data localization. Data centers are huge because data is the new oil. And increasingly, we see that data is being demanded that resides within the territorial borders. When the Russia war erupted, the first thing that Russia got crippled, as an example, was the cutting of the financial systems. And this has become a very, very interesting lesson that, yes, we are living in a globalized world, but at the same time, we have also our dependency. Recently, we had the US Vice President make a comment that in the good old days, when labor was cheaper in other markets, a lot of multinational companies moved their manufacturing to the low-cost markets, assuming that technological advancement, R&D, will remain in the developed markets. But look at this. It didn't happen that way. Today, the emerging markets have got equally capable R&D expertise, design expertise, development expertise. The two car companies I can quote is BYD and Tesla. When Tesla was a pioneer in EV automotive car manufacturing. But BYD, as an example, now has started selling cars in much higher volume than Tesla, which is unthinkable 5 to 6 years ago. So that made a lot of other countries very cautious that how do you protect your intellectual property? So this is really one of the big disruptions that I see, that I would not call it that deglobalization will have with the same speed, but I do see globalization slowing down. I would go back to the other disruption, which is around workplace for the future. This is a topic very core to everybody's heart. When you choose a company for tomorrow, youngsters, which are, let's say, the millennials and the generations that all of you are looking for flexibility, freedom, values. You want to control your own destiny and time. Organizations, when I joined the workforce, had a very, very set routine. My father used to work for the Tatas. He worked in a manufacturing setup. He used to go to the factory at 8 o'clock in the morning, come home because his house was very close to the factory and there was a siren that alerted everybody it's a break time. Come home for lunch. He used to have his lovely siesta for 2 hours. At 2 o'clock, he used to go back and work till 5:30. No internet, no mobile phones, and it's a different world. When I came to the workforce, we still had to go to the office every day. But when I started working with Nokia first and Lenovo, long before COVID, we have been practicing hybrid and flexibility. It was not restrained. But now there's an enormous amount of debate. Where should an employee work from? What should be their primary location? Office, work, hybrid. But what's also getting disrupted in this space is the workforce which is AI-enabled. Imagine a workforce where the real estate is leveraging AI to do resource planning. Today we have a huge unused capacity in the office. We are not able to manage who comes in at what time and how do we best utilize. How do you conserve the energy for green offices where the lights can go off and on? How do you use robotics for cleaning our offices? How do you use the data for our real estate to ensure that we are optimizing the expansion that we have in different markets? So we see a tremendous opportunity where we have AI, and that's why Lenovo as a company has got a digital workforce solution where we help companies, advise companies to get into this journey. So these are some of the disruptions we see on the workplace. Now moving forward, I'll go back to the next disruption, which is I look at gig. Now all of you at some point in time have used or have been using every day Urban Clap, Uber, Ola, and Swiggy and Zomato. This is a phenomenon that will continue to grow. It is not just the platforms where we have seen gig, but technology companies are adopting gig to ensure that they have unrestricted, best intellectual horsepower across the world. It doesn't matter which part of the world you come from, but how do you tap into those resources that you have never seen? From an internal standpoint, one of the very innovative practices Lenovo has done is that just like many of the platform companies uses gig, we have a gig platform. And the gig platform where a leader wants to raise a gig project and say that, hey, I want to do a project of 6 months on this gig, and I'm inviting gig applicants across the world. So it does a couple of things. It allows breaking down organization silos. It allows those on different locations from Europe to Asia to Africa to join and collaborate to work together on a project. It allows multi-skilling. Somebody, for example, maybe on product management want to join sales and never have the opportunity. It allows them to do multi-skilling. And as a company, we're able to harness different kind of resources across the world. And that's another example where we see the usage of gig internally, apart from externally. But remember, every disruption comes with its sets of challenges. There are employment laws in different markets. There are markets where a primary badged employee cannot talk to a gig employee directly, and they are protected by the law. There are issues around pension. There are issues around leave. There are issues around working hours. And these are all issues. But at the end of the day, we're giving a choice to millions of people to move away from an unskilled market to a skilled market. Just yesterday, somebody had come home for an AC repair, and I was talking to him, and I asked him, how long have you been with Urban Clap? And he said, after COVID, he lost his job as an accountant, and he reskilled himself into repairing ACs. And said, then I asked him, that why are you not going back to do an accountant job? He said, A, I have flexibility. B, I'm earning more. And C, that I am able to learn a new skill. So I felt very, very interested with this discussion because while we have many studies, qualitative and quantitative studies about gig workforce, what we know is that this is a population that's going to grow. What we know is that there needs to be some level of, I wouldn't call it a regulation, but guideline to see that we are safeguarding and protecting the rights and accountabilities of the gig workforce. But at the same time, we have to see that we are able to nurture this ecosystem because it is a direct employment generation for a large economy as ours, and definitely this is a very skill-based employability. Let me come to the next, and perhaps, yes. So with that, I would like to conclude there are 5 disruptions I spoke about: the rise of the AI, the hybrid workforce or the AI workforce, the demographics, and the gig workforce of the future. I'm wondering, because of this clicker, if I have missed out any one of them. I think I've covered all of them with what I had planned for. And finally, I would ask you, how many of you, after listening to me, feel that you are disrupted? Again, raise up your hand. Is this the number of hands going up or hands going down? So, well, I hope that you have enjoyed the topics of disruption, and I thank you. I will leave you back with, I think there's one particular slide I missed out, is this one. How do you prepare for disruption? Perhaps the most important one. Listen, every disruption I look at as an opportunity. When I personally took some disruptive steps in my career, moving from a core HR to learning about HR, IT, and technology, who knew that after 15 years, I would be called up to do a work on HR analytics? Because no skill goes waste. AI is a multi-decade phenomenon, is what we feel as a company and what I feel as individually. So the first thing I would ask you that get AI literate. Very important. There's a plethora of courses that is there in the public domain. Be AI literate, because that's very important. And I'm sure all of you are. I don't need to teach you, because this generation is much more aware, much more informed, and much more connected. The second is, based on your functional skills, try to see how AI is being adopted. If I'm in HR, as an example, I need to know how AI is shaping up hiring. I need to know how AI is going to do HR analytics. I need to know how HR is going to make decisions, how AI is disrupting coaching, because there are AI coaches now. So have a functional lens to what you are going to pursue in your career. And that function, how that is going to get disrupted by AI. That's number two. Number three is all about adaptability, because the world around us is changing. We have moved from qualifications to skills. We are seeing disruptions we have never seen. COVID was a big disruption. Then comes the AI. And we spoke about demographics. We spoke about gig workforce. Everything, all of these are phenomena. So how do we adapt ourselves to the new world? Learning agility, never stop learning. It is an old saying that the shelf life of education, and I know I'm saying this in a university, is getting shorter and shorter. What you learn today will soon be obsolete, and that's happened with us. So how do you continue learning? And we have mass open online courses these days, MOOC. Sign up, look out there, and there's a world of information in the YouTube out there. So please spend time to equip yourselves on learning. Curiosity, I personally value this when I interview candidates. How curious are they for the world they live in? How they're able to join the dots, what's happening? And the last one I cannot emphasize more than enough, and I kept the best for the last, is soft skill. Irrespective of what we have, whether AI, digitization, automation, it is again people to people, teamwork, collaboration, matrix, influencing without authority. How do we able to communicate effectively? These are all what I would call under soft skills. So definitely, I leave you back with this particular page, that disruptions will continue to happen, but you have to make the best opportunity to ride above the wave and not be submerged under this. Thank you very much.
So that was an excellent keynote address. A warm applause once again to Mr. Subhankar for setting the tone for this entire, day's proceedings. We'll have a short Q&A with him now. Subhankar, you talked about skill development, because that is a very, very important area which is coming up in a whole lot of discussions. be it governmental or non-governmental discussions. And from your experience, what are the areas where you feel there is a big shortfall in skills, when you go into recruiting people? And when job aspirants go about looking for jobs, I mean, the entire listeners out here, I think the majority of them, when they go out soon into the job market, they'll be facing this big question. How can academic institutions, gear up to bridge the skill gap?
Yeah, excellent question. So I would use the two lenses, Arun. Firstly, being interviewed by India Today makes me nervous. So anyway, there's jokes apart. But I think the two things I would talk about. If I look at the organization's lens, everything that we do it from the lens of what's our business goal and strategy. So as an example, if our organization is transforming from being a devices company to an AI-enabled software and solutions company, we are making a huge focus on skill revitalization and development for our workforce. So there is a massive thrust on how to pull up a large section of the organization for making them future ready. Whether it is to classroom, whether it's to virtual learning, whether it's to on-demand learning, whether it is to peer-to-peer coaching, there is a significant thrust to do that. That's from an organization lens. And for some of the critical skills, it's very important to have certification because learning doesn't happen automatically. One is employee has to show passion, interest, curiosity, learning agility, all the things. But sometimes because of day-to-day work, sometimes super busy. So you have to really coax, engage, and make it happen. From the second part of the question for what the students would look for to align and adapt themselves, firstly, I've been to many of the campuses for campus hiring. Not I do that now, but I used to do that earlier. One, I would look for the candidate who is sufficiently showing curious and knowledge about the role that a person is applying for. Because in a university placement, the way it happens in India is that there are multiple companies and multiple jobs, and sometimes there is very less time to do enough homework and research, because it's important that the student has done enough homework and research, both in the organization and the role applying for. The second thing I think what is important is to understand that what is the person's aptitude towards the role. I have a less focus on knowledge. This is my personal view because I feel that knowledge can be imparted and aptitude and attitude can be more difficult. So the assessment is focusing on aptitude in some of the things that I mentioned: personal drive, curiosity, adaptability, agility. These are things I test for. Teamwork, collaboration. I think these are things I test for rather than knowledge. Of course, knowledge comes a part of that, and knowledge is, of course, you can see that from the various academic credentials. The fact that the student is in that particular university is because of the knowledge and academic credentials. So these are the three ways I would personally look at the best fit for the job and the role.
You talked about soft skills that are needed. Could you elaborate on some of them? I remember when I talked to a top HR professional, she was telling me that gone are the days when you just look at the skills, the ability, whatever degrees, academic degrees, but we look for people who have even been entrepreneurs themselves sometimes, who've gone through failures. We even hire in a big way from organizations that have shut. The whole approach towards hiring has changed. Maybe
100%. And you hit the nail on the head because when we look at the spectrum of applicants, it could be entry level for some of the, for example, the students here. It could be middle level, and it could be leadership. Now, again, I would filter it in two parts. There are country nuances that apply when we hire in India versus in other markets. Now, in India, there's a significant amount of supply of talent, but the demand for the demand pool for the jobs may be not as high. But some of the other markets, it may be a little more supply and demand match. Some of the markets that I work in, you'll be surprised, Arun, that there are graduates who are psychology, geography, history, applying for management jobs. And we take them, 20, 25 in numbers, and they go through, of course, a particular training, but it is very agnostic about what you have studied in your college. And we see increasingly that also in the Western world. But in India, of course, there is a much more definitive path in which we progress in our academic world leading up to the job. So we have courses in accountancy to CA to a financial job, management to an MBA job as an example, and humanities to humanities. But that's one difference I would say. In the middle level, of course, it more goes into finding out how a people manager capability is very strongly reinforced, because that's the layer that is the bridge between the leadership and the team down. And definitely at a leadership level, I think the stakes are much higher. That's where the specialization comes in. But I also see a big difference on leadership profiles in India versus some of the other markets. So here there is still a very large weightage on qualification, but in some of the other markets, it is more about experience, and the weightage on qualification would be a little less.
Okay. You also mentioned about the hybrid workforce, and that is something that has become extremely common across organizations, especially after COVID-19. And today, I think a lot of managers are struggling to find employees in their seats. I know of situations where the manager would want to share an idea immediately, but he doesn't find the person there, and he has to either go on a Zoom call or go on a conference call. And I think even as job aspirants are looking for flexible hours, a better quality of life, like Sonal mentioned in her introduction. So the expectations from the job aspirants themselves have changed, and I think COVID had a big role for that. How do you manage, how do you create that perfect balance, which will at the same time ensure there is enough efficiency and productivity in the organization?
There is no perfect balance. That is my first response. And I'll give you a few examples. What I see around the world is employers wanting in the technology sector, manufacturing has always been in the office, wanting to come back. Employers, leadership, wanting to have employees back in the office, bearing a very few. But there is a significant resistance from the employees to come back to the workplace at least 5 days a week. Now, there are reasons for that, because it offers better time management, it offers better work-life balance. People are caregivers at home, they have small children, they have aging parents. So these are realities, and they have got used to operating in a particular way. So it is a reality that there is a strong tussle that is going on across the world. Secondly, I also see there is a difference of different countries' culture that comes in. Some of the countries who have very, very hierarchical in nature, they have been able to get employees back in the office pretty fast. But there are individualistic societies, largely the Western worlds, they are struggling. Even the leadership communication to make that happen is not working. And many companies are trying to attach this with promotion and other ways to make that happen. My last point is that at Lenovo, what we've done is we've done hybrid. So we've got 3 days in office, but do we follow it to the T? We do not. It is guidance, and we are also understanding. I mentioned about AI. I think we haven't seen the world, but we will have digital twins. We will find out what is the most effective way to increase productivity. The leaders at the end of the day want to ensure that the employees are the most productive wherever they are. But today we don't have a very clear ways to measure that across markets.
Okay, let me ask the students out here. How many of you would like to work completely out of office? Raise hands. One, I can actually count them. 20%. How many of you would prefer hybrid structure?
Wow.
So I think there's largely an agreement. We have a brilliant set of students here, and they have a few questions. Can we have the questions from the audience, please? The mics
The gentleman out there.
Gentleman at the back? Oh, okay. You can give it to him. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I am Arpan. I'm currently pursuing BBA, and this is my last sem. So I have a question regarding Gen Z. Are Gen Zs preferring more project-based works or gigs rather than a full-time role?
I think, again, my answer would be that it also depends on you're talking about India specifically, I would assume, because it has got a lens around job security. It also has a lens around Gen Z valuing what the company's value systems are. It depends on employees wanting to get more flexibility. Our studies of benefit survey has shown that Gen Z have prioritized flexibility as the biggest factor to choose companies. But they're also driven by many other values and beliefs. For example, how committed the organization in sustainability and the ecology of the world. Now, there is no specific response that whether it is a black and white. It would also depend on what industry that you're working on and what kind of socioeconomic part of the world that one comes in, whether jobs are a necessity or it is something that, so there are factors that would determine that, I would say.
Okay, thank you. We have one question from Dr. Uma, who is the program head, School of Management. Dr. Uma is here. Can you please pass the mic?
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Uma Jaidev. Thank you very much for a very wonderful talk. I'm sure it benefited most of us listening. So my question is, for anybody who is wanting to, companies would want the employees to adopt AI, work extensively on AI, but I would want to understand this is a hypothetical, I'm expecting a hypothetical answer from your end because the question is such. So I would like to understand what are the potential benefits do you see an average worker getting out of using AI? What benefits do you see that an average worker would get out of using AI? Is my question. If you could throw some light on it, please.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. It's a very good question. Thanks for the question. I think what we see as immediate benefit is that a lot of our transaction work, repetitive work, mundane work, getting out of moving to AI. So using the generative AI skills, we have the entire chat, which is really not the most pleasurable thing to answer custom queries. And if we are able to do a smart generative AI, that's the first opportunity. The second is in our manufacturing, where we have got robotics automation. A lot of our manual work, which is very, very very, very risky, where machines are taking over. I think that's another way where we are helping to save more, protect lives, and make the employee much more safer. Thirdly, I think when you talk about ethical AI, it is important that because of AI, there's a lot of focus on ethics in AI. And an organization investing a lot of resources, dissemination of communication to ensure that our AI is used rightfully, responsibly, and within compliance. So these are three things, three responses.
Thank you. We have just time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Sabha.
Should I ask? Okay. Sir, I'm Professor Jagdeep. First of all, thank you very much for your valuable insights. My question is regarding DEI, diversity, inclusion, and Generation Z is most diverse generation right now. And with the selection of new American president, some debate started. Some companies in America, they are not in favor of DEI practices. And Apple said they will do that, right? So my two questions. First question, are your company in favor of diversity inclusion practices? Second, what practices you are doing if your answer is yes?
Yeah, 100%. Great question. The first answer is 100% yes. We are 100% committed to DEI because to us, DEI is a business need. We have a diverse set of customers by gender, by race, by habit, by nationality, by religion. So we have to ensure that we are addressing each of the customer segments whether it is in our consumer category or commercial category or services categories. That's number one, that we would like us to be driven this as a business mandate because it is good for our business.
For example, third gender is there. And do you have facilities in your organization for third gender?
Very good question again. So I can speak for Asia Pacific. The answer is yes. Now, there are labor laws in different parts of the world which are different when it comes to LGBTQI. So we have a program called gender identification, and those who volunteer to be gender identified are really ensured that their identity is protected and they're supported in a way. So we have two markets in Asia Pacific, which is Australia and India, where we have got the gender identification campaign, but it's completely voluntary. But there are also markets within Asia Pacific where LGBTI by law is not really applicable, and we are sensitive to the local laws of each market that we operate in. So 100% we are in the DI journey because it's good for our business, and we have got effective DNI programs in all the markets that we work in.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So with that, we have run out of time, but we had such an inspiring session. Thank you. So a big round of applause to Mr. Subhankar. Over to you, Sonal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury, for sharing insights on how to be disruptive, how to prepare for it, and what are the key areas where disruption is all set to make a very significant impact. I would have to request you to please come back on stage for felicitation, please. I would also now like to request India Today's Managing Editor, Sahaya Ranjit, and Presidency University's Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Shankar Shetty, to come on stage and hand over token of appreciation to our esteemed speaker. You want to do the MC script? You want? Okay. No, Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our next session. Sorry, I'm just used to saying ladies and gentlemen, students. I'm sorry, I didn't want to miss you here. Okay, so now Gen Z is set to surpass millennials as the most populous generation, with more than 1/3 of the global population being Gen Zers. This cohort is fascinating for sure, and very distinct too, with characteristics that differ greatly from millennials. Several surveys have highlighted their preference to work on their own terms, their belief in a larger purpose, and how they value salary less than any generation before them. Today, our panel will discuss what companies need to do to win their hearts, retain them, and unlock their potential. To explore the importance of making companies Gen Z ready, we have a set of very experienced speakers with us. Please welcome them on stage, everyone. I would like to call Mino Thomas, Senior Director, Talent and Global Head Talent Operations, Adobe. Shweta Mohanty, Vice President and Head of Human Resources, SAP India. Everyone, can we have a round of applause for the speakers? Taruna Suhasini Lomor, Country Manager for Centers of Expertise, IKEA India. And Pashupati S., Chief Operating Officer for Careernet. I will also be moderating this session, and we will also be taking questions at the end of this session as well. So maybe you might want to think through all the queries you may have for our speakers. Thanks everyone for coming. And I hear, the Bangalore traffic is very bad, and now we are actually seeing it for the first time here. Pashupati, I will start with you, because as a high HR services firm, you work with companies across sectors. And I also know that you've done several surveys on Gen Zs. So before I move to the respective companies and the respective sectoral learnings, I would like to hear from you on what are the findings from these surveys on what is it that Gen Z expects from workplaces, and how are they different from millennials?
Sure. So just to give a context, we do a lot of college hiring. So in that context, we talk to a lot of students. We also help organizations to kind of identify the right talent. So one of the things that we noted that at least in our generation, a lot of our careers were accidental. Careers were accidental.
Accidental,
yeah.
Right.
So we went to a college because somebody referred. We picked up a job because the company came into the campus. But the today's generation is wanting to make very specific choices. So, for example, if let's assume somebody is studying engineering in a particular field, but I think some of them are very clear that they want to do a job in a certain area which might actually be very different from where they are studying. And that is one of the reasons today, if you happen to see a LinkedIn profile of some of these students, it's much longer than some of the professionals that are here, because they do a lot of these internships. They're trying to figure out where they really want to go about. I think the current generation has choices, but at the same time, they also exert what choices they want to follow. And that's one of the reasons why they're very, very particular about the college and branch might be accidental, because it is defined by your marks and the counseling and the way it goes. But then on, people are defining how they would really want to do. And a good number of them even decide to look at careers outside of engineering. That is one of the reasons where today the students are, I think there was one of these questions that was asked by a student here saying about the projects. So yeah, so today the students are wanting to try out some of these before they actually end up in the job in the form of projects. So that is one of the reasons where right from the first year, actually, if you see, a lot of the students are trying to get projects, try to understand what they are really trying to do. They try out something in the first year, something very different in the second year, and by the third or fourth year, they're actually able to figure out where they really want to. So that's a trend that we see across happening in a large way.
So very interesting. They experiment, they're very clear about what they want, and they do prefer and want to try out new ways of working. Shweta, so, there is obviously a very new set of expectations now from workplace, but it has also led to a lot of several misconceptions about this cohort. So, how are you then as an organization? Because, I know that for a lot of organization, technology firms especially, they believe a lot in building the talent pipeline, right? And succession, right? So, how are you now leveraging this talent to drive workplace success?
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question, and I'm really excited to be here. It's always my pleasure to interact with students, so I really hope all of you have a lot of questions for us in the panel. When we look at the misconceptions, and I look at more as opportunities, so not as misconceptions. I think, the way the workforce is changing, and the way we are defining our workforce, workplace practices, is really defined by what the expectations of our, employees are, right? And in most of the organization, I can say with a fair amount of confidence that you would find, if not 5 generations, 4 generations, of employees working together hand in hand. And it's always important to understand how you can make, all of them work together. So we don't really look at, the Gen Z as one isolated, kind of category of employees. We look at how do we make sure that they are successful while operating in the environment, that we work in. And in some of the areas that we have really figured out, which to your point on misconception, many times early talents or Gen Z are tagged with, is that they need a lot of flexibility, right? And I would really ask this question, who doesn't need the flexibility? I have been 24 years in the industry. I need flexibility too. So let's not really categorize this and say that they are the only, only set of our employees who need flexibility. What we are really need to define is how we are really creating a sense of belonging, for the early talents, for the Gen Z who are getting into the organization. And one of the things which I'm really proud that we do in SAP is that anybody that you meet, especially the Gen Z, especially the early talents that, join us, if you ask them what do you do, they would first probably say I'm a developer, or I work in this particular area. And then they would say that I'm a part of this ERG and I'm working on this project and I'm part of this initiative and I'm anchoring on this and I have written this white paper. And that gives you, a fair understanding that, here is a generation who wants to dabble in different things and they want to be involved. They want to really play a part in defining the policy. So a lot of times I reach out to them to really figure out, what we need to do. One of our practices, which is a little bit of a market defining, which I started around 7 years back, is a feedback actually from one of our early talents. We have a practice called entrepreneurial sabbatical. Where we allow our employees to take a break for 2 years. And it's like they are still with us, they're still employed with us, but they take a break to figure out what kind of startup aspirations they have and go, kind of test it out in the market. And we allow them to be, on the rolls, we allow them all the benefits that, any other employee is eligible for. If they succeed, they eventually leave us, but they leave us with a fair amount of, a strong positive feedback. And if somehow that idea doesn't click and they want to come back, we really cherish that because that experience of starting and failing fast is hugely beneficial for us. And this idea actually came from, one of our early talents, where he said, you keep on talking about a startup culture, but you are really not letting us, experiment with that. So I do see a lot of advantages in terms of listening to Gen Z, in terms of, having a pulse of what they want, and not having preconceived notions. Like I said, the flexibility is not really a Gen Z tag thing. I would never accept that. And really taking them along in the journey. So, I think it's as important, for any other organization to, to bounce off ideas, to collect feedback and work along the way. So that's what I would like to put.
Very interesting. So on flexibility, Taruna, I would like to ask you, flexibility is one of the key tenets at IKEA, and rightly so. Why I'm saying that also because in a retail sector, it's not very common. So how are you integrating it into the culture for your multi-generational workforce?
Lovely question, and thank you everyone for having me here. I'm not sure the murmurs that I hear in the back, is it the excitement or is it like, oh God, another Gyan given to us? So I'm really not sure, but I hope the murmur is as exciting as we are to share our inputs. So like somebody said, just keep your questions ready. It'll be interesting to have a conversation with you. I'm not from any IT organization. I come from a retail background, and my organization is IKEA. We are known as a people's organization because we balance between people and business, and that's the philosophy with which we would like to move forward all the time. And hence, we believe that as much as the business needs people, people also need business, and hence there needs to be a certain level of flexibility in ensuring that both the sides are able to adapt to each other a little bit more to ensure it's a win-win for people as well as for business. Yes, it's pretty challenging in the retail sector to have a flexible work environment, but what's a life if there's no challenge? Yeah? So we accept that. It's worked well for us. I wouldn't categorize necessarily to say that it's for Gen Z. I think not to make them feel bad or good, but we have that because I believe it's a right thing to do. We have different type of work contracts and working hour contracts available with us. Depending on whatever life stage an individual is in, they are able to become a part of our journey within India and otherwise in the world as well. So we do weekend contracts where if somebody is studying, they can just do the weekend contracts with us, work for only Saturdays and Sundays or whatever we can get aligned to them. We do 3 days, we do 5 days. We also have a little smaller than that, but for India that may not be feasible. But we ensure that the contracts are made in such a way that it allows you to get a sense of achieving something by having your monetary or financial independence, gain knowledge while you're working, but at the same time also give more time to your hobbies and other passion that you would like to explore and have in your life. So that's what we do with regards to flexibility. It has worked well across all sections. It's worked well for different segments of diversity within the organization as well. So yeah, so far so good.
Great. Traditional concepts, and with Shweta, we briefly touched upon the misconceptions, and she mentioned about the opportunities. So I'm going to come back to that question again. Like the traditional concepts of loyalty and work ethic are also very different, right? So how have these changes impacted your organization's approach to employee engagement and retention as well?
All right. I have a very unique name. It's, you got to be born in Kerala to understand what this name means. It actually means nothing. It just basically rhymes. Like, so you're basically given names which rhyme. So my brother is Mijo, my sister was supposed to be Minnie, it became Mabel. So it's like, Mijo, Mimi, come here. So, everybody turns up. I want to try and see if I could really tailor this more for the audience. A lot of us are trying to really discover what Gen Z is. And I think you are also in the discovery journey, even though you're a Gen Z. Make sense? Yes? If it makes sense, you're resonating yes to me? Yes. All right. And I'm not surprised because there's no uniform code, right? And what I realize is we did an experiment where we had like a captive audience of 130,000 people who did a hackathon with us. And we rolled out a survey because that was largely Gen Z. We had 17,000 responses, which is great. I mean, that's a good response. And we found a response which was largely a little conflicting within it. But within that layer, we found a few things. The first thing, my father worked in an institute for 35 years. My mother worked in the same institute for 30 years. My brother works in an institute in Bombay, and he's been there for 23 years. And I have been working for 23 years, and I've switched 3 companies, and I'm the black sheep in the house. All right? It's very interesting, and the reason why I say that is because loyalty to a Gen Z is not loyalty to an enterprise. Let me repeat. Loyalty to a Gen Z, which is you, is not loyalty to an enterprise. But your loyalty is to a group of people that associate with you, your friend circle. Your loyalty is to a purpose that you just discovered. And you want to rally and see how you could really make an impact in that purpose. So loyalty still exists, but it's at a different plane. It's intertwined very high to the purpose that you have. So as enterprises, when I approach a Gen Z, I go saying, everybody has a story. Everybody should be able to tell a story. And they should be able to tell their story creatively, with pictures, with videos, and make storytelling democratic. That is why Adobe exists. Does that connect? Yes? Because you want somebody sitting somewhere with no tools to still tell a story with as much finesse and grace as a person who's got a Fortune 50 power behind it. When we say it that way, a Gen Z is like, it makes sense. There is a purpose. You're trying to make something happen. In terms of engagement, so what we do is, we would hire somebody from, say, an IIT Bombay, and we would do something called an alum mixer. The person is in a room, and you would have people who have been with Adobe for 15 years from the same campus. And then they would sit down and discover and debate and talk about, because Gen Z really loves very sincere and open debates. Agree? Yes. You know, the other thing is, even in attraction, what we realized is when we send across, like 5 years back, we would send across these very cosmetic, very well-made banners to try and attract. And we realized that you have grown up making those things and you can see the farce behind it very quickly. So what we do now is very viral. You go, do, say what you want to do, and just create constructs. But what you would see underlaced here is the fact that rawness, openness, and being purposeful is the only way you could narrate a story that sells, that connects, that explains, that engages with Gen Z. And so for you, you have to start debating, how do I connect to these things? And if you aren't connecting to these things, don't worry. You're uniquely Gen Z, but differently Gen Z. Yes? All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Pashupati, Meenu raised this very interesting point about engaging with the audience through hackathons, right? And also through these surveys and all, and the whole point about how they get attracted to openness, rawness. So, you know, as you are in this recruitment business, what are you telling your organizations that you work with, or what is it that you are seeing on ground, what is it that, because I have also seen a lot of Gen Zs just you know, declining a lot of job offers because they did not like the person who was interviewing them, right? So how do you really engage this talent and hire this talent?
So somebody in my office asked me in one of those sessions saying, if you were supposed to get a superpower, what is that one that you would want? I would say I can predict if the candidate will join or not. So, sorry? Yeah, sure. So, I mean, let's first of all understand, because we've been talking about Gen Z, what makes a Gen Z, and what really happened to the generation before that. And by the way, this offer decline is not a Gen Z phenomenon, it happens across all levels. And now you see heads nodding across. Yes, yeah, precisely. So, I think the generation before Gen Z did not have access to a lot of information. They were kind of, because the world was still not so flat, information had to go around, it took time. There were restrictions from a society standpoint because parents, we were not supposed to ask things and so on. I think to a certain extent financially also things were not really available. Now, the Gen Z is what the way society has evolved rather than people one day deciding to become Gen Z. That's primarily the whole construct that people had more choices, people had little more freedom. The way they were brought up is very different. Probably the financial situation was better, so they could make choices as well. So similarly, when it comes to the job market as well, so one of the things that, we do a lot of these projects when a multinational is setting up in India, what we call as a GCC. Now the first thing they would ask is that we are a big brand in this part of the world. Now we are coming to India and we would want to hire probably the best of the talent. So what should we do? So the first thing we tell them that, see, by the way, there are already other equally good brands that are present in India. So as far as the candidate is concerned, it is their choice whether they would want to attend your organization's hiring process. So the first thing that needs to go out is, one is of course what you do globally, but I think one of the most important thing is you need to connect the job that the individual might be doing in this organization, in that location, and that's really what people are wanting to hear rather than to figure out what is a really big brand. See, talking about brands, I think I was telling you this anecdotal story. So my son was going to college, so we decided to get him some new dress. So he said that he wants to go to a particular brand. I've not heard the name. And the only reason he wants to go there because he saw the founders talking about in Shark Tank. So it's probably, the brand was not about the apparel. The brand was about the individual who was there out selling those clothes and he wanted to wear that. So similarly, if you look at the individuals, and I would now attribute it to a larger brush of saying not just Gen Z but across, people would want to get associated to a particular brand, and that's the reason where they would want to kind of go and work there. And obviously, they are also very smart enough to understand what Minu alluded to, saying that the selling pitch that everybody makes, people are able to make out saying that, there's something beyond that. I mean, you can go and tell the world, we are an X billion-dollar company, we are so-and-so in the world, and so on. The kid is allowed to ask, he'll say, so what? I mean, what am I going to really get something out of this is what is there. And sometimes, I'm switching as a Gen Z parent now. I mean, you go and try to inspire them, and finally they say, I really not get inspired by all of these things. There are probably different things which really inspire us to do that. So that is the reason where we tell organizations that one of the things you need to do is probably be very, very genuine in terms of saying this is exactly what we are going to do, not rather telling them that we are going to launch satellites to the moon. Tell them this is the work, this is what is really going to happen. And then individuals make a choice, because even if the person doesn't accept the offer, probably will leave in 6 months if what you promised was not really there. So sometimes we tell organizations, do not go to this tier of talent because they're not really going to stick to you. So it's not your personal victory that you hired the best of the talent, because you're not there to hoard talent, you're there to hire and kind of really work with the talent. So that's exactly what we tell organization, and the entire branding strategy, the conversation, and including the hiring process, and the talent that they go behind for the job family is also attributed accordingly.
So expectation setting, openness are very key priorities. And you also mentioned about branding, and that brings me to purpose, because that features quite high in their priority list. So Shweta, as an organization, and one of the top companies in the world, like one of the Fortune 500 companies, how are you integrating purpose? How are you aligning purpose with company values for Gen Z?
No, that's a very good question, Sonal, and I do believe amongst all the stuff that we are talking about, misconceptions, there is one thing which really stands out quite positively about the Gen Z, is how connected they are to purpose. And I share a lot of anecdotes because that will just help you to kind of understand, how we kind of connect with our employees. About 2 years back, early in the morning, I go to office, 8:30, there is a young lad waiting for me outside my office, and I thought it's about some career progression or a feedback on something. And the first question this person asked me is, Shweta, what is the stance of SAP on this Russia-Ukraine war, right? And for a minute, I was perplexed, because here is somebody who has studied in Vizag, lived in somewhere in a small town in Tamil Nadu, working in Bangalore for the first time, and he is really bothered about what is an organization stance on a geopolitical, activity or incident that is happening. And that is what I'm very proud about Gen Z, on how connected they are. There is a similar kind of incident a few years back where, one of our employees said that he will work, Monday to Thursday, but he wants Friday off. So like a typical, manager, the manager came and said, yeah, I'm not finding, this person committed, to this. And, I had a one-on-one with this person where he said that he actually takes the Friday off to go and teach at an NGO with which he is associated for the last several years. So, I love that this generation really is able to connect purpose so well into their life. And they live by it, that probably a lot of us did not have the luxury to focus so much about. At SAP, we take that extremely seriously. So, this is something which is integrated as a part of our values. But a few things that we do, like I said, we have a lot of ERGs, employee resource groups. And one of the very important aspect that we have is our CSR initiatives.
Elaborate what are employee resource groups?
Employee resource groups are, kind of groups that are self-created. There is no management involved there. They kind of come together for a common purpose or a passion. And that is what that drives them. So they, kind of do pro bono work. They come together over weekends. They will take that initiative to kind of, partner with somebody internally or externally to drive that. So we have more than 25 of these ARGs, right from people who are passionate about, dancing to people who are really passionate about teaching, right? So you have all these kind of ERGs, and every year we add a few more because there is a new aspect that certainly comes in. The other thing that we do, and this I have seen fundamentally change the perspective of especially our Gen Z, is there's a program called SAP Social Sabbatical, where for a period of 4 weeks, if it is an international social sabbatical, or for a period of 8 weeks, if it is within the country, we let our employees actually go and work with a social enterprise, or an NGO, or somebody who's really doing grassroots work. And their job is to really kind of contribute coming from their expertise. So you are a project manager, you will contribute as a project manager. You are a recruiter, you will tell them what are good hiring practices. You are somebody who really, they are looking for digitalization of their systems, you are somebody who will design that for them. Right? So, there is a cohort of, 10 to 15 people from different parts of the world who come together in a location, actually working on the ground for that. And this is not something which is on, that you have done a great job, you get promoted, then hence you become eligible for SAP Social Sabbatical. This is something which is, we kind of make it available for everybody in the organization. And who are the maximum number of people raising hand? No surprises? It's Gen Z, right? So we have a lot of, that. And I think if you're able to find avenues, for the Gen Z to connect to their purpose, and we were talking about, longevity and offer declines and loyalty, right? I think these are the aspects which Gen Z really looks forward to, right? So a lot of people, when they come to us during the interview process, say that we heard about this and you are really passionate about this purpose. But what is our stance on that? And I'll end by saying that I didn't really have an answer for that lad who came and asked me about the Russia-Ukraine war, because it was a little too early. But I'm sure in the last 2 years he has got his answers. Yeah, and he knows what the organization stance is, because he's still with us and he's still thriving, right? So that's the kind of difference we have made.
Very interesting. Purpose is an important question, and I would like to get another sectoral view from IKEA also on this. And you mentioned IKEA is a people's organization, right? So how are you building building purpose into the organization and for the people and the workforce?
For us in IKEA, our vision is very clear, that we are for the many. A business idea talks about that we have to be affordable for the many. So we have already decided that we want to be where everybody is there, or the many are there, and we're able to service the many, yeah, and that's the purpose. But in doing so, when you talk about the many, there are so many aspects that you have to keep in consideration. How do you embrace different set of people coming in the organization, which is diversity? It's easy to get in people, but how do you include everybody into it is inclusion. How do you contribute back to the community? Because it's not only people who are coming and working with you, but you also have a responsibility towards the many. That is sustainability and your contribution towards the community. And then how are you ensuring that everybody feels that this is the place that they want to be, contributing to the success of the brand and of course to their own learning and development, which is their own self-growth. So the moment we say that that's the purpose that we have to achieve, and then you look at the environment outside, the amount of uncertainty, the geopolitical conditions, rising inflation, strained trade routes, multiple different challenges that come your way every single day in terms of legislation, compliances, government rules and regulations. What becomes more important? That you hold these many together. That's the purpose. That's the purpose that drove us from so many years. That's the purpose that still drives us today. And that's also the purpose that we bring in our products. Yeah, so there is a sense that goes behind in developing something and making into a product, where we build credibility with the customer for them to come back to us. So every single thing that we do within our supply chain and the entire value chain is purpose-driven because there's a reason of our existence that is once and for all decided. If I have to really give examples, there are a lot of different aspects considered into making anything as simple as a simple table. And why is that an IKEA product and not any other product? Yeah, that's what brings people back to us. When we still have a DIY concept, which is do it yourself, which was bringing the families together in setting up a cot or a sofa or a piece of furniture, and the kind of blue boxes that we have. We call our stores blue boxes because that's as big as a blue box and you can get lost. So please visit the store, but bring a lot of water with you and wear sneakers because you'll have to walk around a lot. So if you go around, you will see that everything has a reason the way it is done, it is set. It's a place for the entire family to come together. Yeah. The thought was, okay, let's get people together. But yes, if I am a mother and I have a young child and who needs to be taken care of, how do I focus on shopping? So we have a small PlayStation where you can leave your kids by the time you're shopping. Now that you have come here and you're going to take a lot of time to decide on a heavy investment because you don't buy sofas and beds every day, and you really need to think what's going to work for you, yeah? It has to resonate with you. So if you're doing that, you're going to get hungry because you're going to go around. So you need a place to eat. And then you also need to have people coming and being there with you. So then there is a restaurant. But every time you may not need too much to eat. It's an evening time, you need tea, coffee, so you have a bistro. So everything that is done with the purpose of ensuring that we are there for the many, catering the many in many ways that we can, yet ensuring that we have the right quality in what we are doing. So everything is related in our values, is bought in our behaviors that make it our culture every day. So it's not just there, it's something that we experience and we live and we deliver to every day. That's the commitment, that's the purpose that we have towards us and towards the community.
So thanks, Taruna. This panel will not be complete if I don't ask a question about AI and automation. So, AI and automation, a lot has been spoken about on how it is reshaping and redefining job roles and job profiles. And Gen Z has grown up with a lot of these digital technologies. So how are you preparing the new incoming employees for the future of work?
I like what Subhankar also spoke some time back. I think it's very relevant. See, India has largely been a knowledge economy, right? And which means the power of having so many young population has always been our strength. But the world is slowly moving away because the unit price for knowledge and intelligence has come down so significantly that humans are no longer needed to do what you were doing before. So hence what's happening to India, I mean specifically taking India as an example is, I think the very boon that we had is going to be a little bit of a problem for us. Because there is a very high need to reinvent. and be still out there and be useful, right? So the question that each one of you should ask yourself is, what do you bring differentiated that truly brings value to what you do? And if you're not able to find an answer for that, I would say it's a time for you to sit down, reflect, and truly bring that value, right? As enterprises right now are thinking about, I mean, at least high-tech companies are thinking about, should we invest in GPUs? Should we invest in different things that could increase productivity? And how does it inform our workforce strategy, right? And these questions will only become more and more serious as it goes along, right? My advice to each one of you is, please find your niche and start working on it. Don't take it light, because we are not an experience economy as well. India is not an experience economy, right? So we have always been a knowledge economy, and we need to pivot onto something different, and we are discovering it, right? And we are discovering it, which is a little sober, right? It's very sobering. So please start taking a little bit of grip on your life, if you haven't yet, and see how you really would mean business, right? The one thing that we definitely know as product companies is we make products which has to stay relevant to Gen Z, which means hiring you is important. Because if you are not a part of the team that makes a product, our products will no longer be products that mean for the Gen Z, right? So it's important for us, but it's also important for you to know how could you get on the team and be a part of a team that creates a product if it's a product company like Adobe, and what do you do to get there? It's making sense? Dangerous sense? Yeah. All right, okay, thanks.
So I have time for one last question. Okay, I have time for one last question. Subhankar in the keynote mentioned about how even education is getting disrupted, and the span of time is getting shorter. What is relevant today is not relevant tomorrow. So if I have, and this question I'll ask each one of you this, is what is this one piece of advice if you have to give Gen Z on how should they prepare themselves for the jobs of the future? Because, I mean, we are all saying that skills are no longer relevant. It is the aptitude. So Pashupati, I'll just start from you.
Sure. So maybe I'll take the liberty of getting into a little bit of a counseling mode if it's required. I was trying to stop myself, but really could not. So if you, so some of these questions which Sonal was asking, actually, without attending this event, you could have just put it on ChatGPT, and you would have got the answers. Trust me. And the answers, at least some of the flavor of the answer that you got from us, you'd get from ChatGPT as well. How do I know that? Because I put those questions on ChatGPT to prepare for this conversation. But the interesting part is, the anecdotes that people spoke about here would be completely missing. Imagine you're watching a movie which does not have any background music, it does not have any emotion, and sometimes the dialogues are also off. That is how remote working is. So I'm particularly alluding to the survey that I saw when people were asked how many of you would want to have a flexible workforce, flexible working. And I'm a little old school in this. I would say that in the initial part of your career, please try to spend as much time as learning. And I'll tell you why this is really going to happen. Incidentally, I've come back from a trip in the Bay Area where we talked to multiple people as to what really is happening. And I'm sure all of you would have also been seeing this, and this is happening especially in the US right now. People are not getting internships. Entry-level jobs, people are finding it very difficult to get. And the primary reason is because all the entry-level tasks are being done by these AI agents. So people are looking at, but individuals who have knowledge, who have more context. So what is really going to happen for a lot of us is that you probably need to upskill yourself right when you are in college, rather than thinking that you'll go join a company which will train you, teach you, and so on and so forth. I'm sure all of you wrote through some engineering entrance exam or any of this entrance exam, right? And when you were doing it in school, the school curriculum was not supporting that. You did it on your own so that you could do it. Now, why do you think that what you study in college is really going to help you in the job as well? So that is the reason where I think it is very, very important that people figure out what is it they want to do, and whatever they want to, they really start focusing on that. Because instead of starting at level 1, probably the job now starts at level 2 or level 3, where the assumption is that there are a lot of these skills which people are there. And that is precisely the reason where it's very, very important that focus on really developing skills, not to clear an interview, but to really get the job. And second, when you get onto the job, please try to learn more from your colleagues, and that will happen only if you're present in office. It will not happen with remote working.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that was very interesting, and I'm sure a lot to learn from there. Shweta?
Yeah, maybe I'll also touch a little bit about learning. You know, for the longest period of time, some of you who have learned learning models, there used to be a T-shaped model, right? And a T-shaped model says you have a certain base and you go really deeper. So subject matter expertise and knowing deep into the subject was something which was really valued by organizations. Today we don't know what that thing, that deep expertise looks like, right? And hence it's very, very important for us to move into what I called as a vase-shaped learning. So you start with certain foundation that you are getting it in your institute, in the courses you are doing, and you do a certain certifications, but you need to keep it expanding. And that expansion just doesn't need to be that I'm a mechanical engineer and I will only do courses in mechanical engineer. You really need to learn about a completely different, line of, vocation or something which is really, really kind of coming up. You should keep on expanding that. Because what organizations are really looking at, people who have the learning agility. I never knew there is a word like that till some years back, right? And learning agility really means is that when the opportunity knocks, when you have something, you have the ability to quickly, get ramped up on that. And that will only come if you do not focus just on one particular thing, because for all you know, a lot of us always say that what we learned in college is never what we, practiced. Believe me, it is 10x of what is going to be there, in the current, current world. And if you have to be relevant, you have to constantly learn. So one of my advice to all of you would be every year, do something that moves you out of your comfort zone. Right? Take up a course which you never thought you can do. Be a part of a program which you thought you actually don't fit in. I'm not a coder. I cannot, write lines of code. I'm not a developer. I will not do that. I have only interest in this. I will pursue that. Leave that thought behind. Try to do something, because that's the only thing that will help you kind of brave what is going to come in the industry. So that's my answer.
Very interesting. Learning, upskilling, is becoming key for, in fact, it's like actually tougher as you age is what we have been told and what we have learned. Taruna?
So firstly, I'll say ditto and a ditto. And now let me bring some different aspect to it. Bring your complete self. Extremely critical. Who are you? What are your values? What are your principles in life? What's your foundation? What keeps you grounded? Identify yourself first. You need to know who you are, because if you do not identify that, you will not have the purpose of where everybody have been talking about that. You will not be able to reach and be connected with that organization. Learn to deal with failures. There is no standard way of learning. What you're doing today is just foundational, making you ready to the concept of knowledge and information. It's not all. Whatever you do, every single action that you do is a learning experience, provided you think and introspect about it to consciously make an effort to identify what is it that you have learned from it. These are the things that will take you forward as an individual, because if you have curiosity, you will learn. If you think about learning, you will learn. If you have resilience, you will learn from your failures, from your experiences every day. There is some charm in relishing a taste over a period of time. Don't lose interest. I did this job and I didn't like it, or the manager was too let me just move out. So think about it as a curve, yeah? Today you are sitting somewhere where you have an aspiration of, you know, these guys, they took so many years to reach here, I'll do that in 10 years. How? And you can, because you're learning from our mistakes and our experiences. Leverage it, be smarter. But how? Consistency, perseverance, resilience is the key to that. I start this journey, not working, let me go down. And I start again and I go down. Nothing wrong. If that's the way you want it, that's fine too. That's also a professional journey. But at the end of it, be satisfied and contented with it. Don't compare. He or she has this and I don't have that. Then that should not come in. So make a very conscious choice. He spoke about being a little serious about identifying and defining some purpose for your own self. Yeah. A very different aspect that I'm bringing in is a reality check for you that professional world is different from academic world. You will make friends, but professionally within the office environment. You will have jokes, you will have fun, you will have laughter, but then there are disciplines and respect that you need to have. And one important thing that I'm bringing up here is about prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. A taboo topic, but a topic where we land up getting a lot of issues because of lack of awareness on this topic. Today, it's very easy for us to comment on somebody, some matter, somebody's who and who, very swiftly being one amongst the many by writing something on social media and just turning off my phone. A situation like that can actually put you in trouble because of code of conduct and POSH violation at the workplace. It's a serious thing because you are the ones who will be contributing to the inclusion and diversity within the organization. It's okay to make fun, but not at the cost of the next person. So the meaning and definition of my pals and friends at work will change a little bit because you'll also have the element of respect that you'll have to bring in. I wish there was any other way of dealing for this generation or generation after this or before this. Sadly, no. That's the reality. Yeah. Learn to have some structure while being agile. Yeah. Rightly mentioned by Shweta, jack of all, but master of you. Who you are, your values, your foundation, your principle. Become one or master of that. And a jack of all. Multi-scaling, rescaling, upscaling, remove this, learn that. Other things that you will have to cope up with. Have patience. Invest time in your own self. And so rightly mentioned by Pashupati as well, that be at work. I'm old school as well. I have the option of doing work from home, but I am the first in office every day because, of course, I drive a lot. And mornings is much better. 7:30 is what I reach office. And I love it because I get that extra time. And it's been 2 days because of whatever reasons I have not been able to meet my team. And I'm like looking forward eagerly to meet them tomorrow, give them a hug and say that, oh, I missed you guys. It brings something else. Do not let go of the impact that human touch and human interactions can have on you and your development in totality. You all have been together in a journey. You all have been learning together. I'm sure you're learning something. Your sports does something to you, brings in that spirit and resilience to take up challenges, yeah? Cultural activities bring something to you. All of these skills will bring a lot to you when you come to professional side, making you a little different from everybody else, yet part of the many, yeah? So look at that and see how you can work on that. Thank you.
I'm like in my mind striking off things now, like, you know, I'm like, wo bol diya, ye bol diya, wo bol diya, kuch hai nahi. Yeah. Let me probably just phrase it for you. If you get a chance to climb on a rocket ship, don't ask which seat. I repeat, if you get a chance to climb on a rocket ship, don't ask which seat. That should be your first principle in life. Whenever you are in a very uncomfortable situation, being asked to do something that is very not you, not about ethics, but work-wise, jump on. You will have an undue advantage of failure. I repeat, you will have an undue advantage of failure. The second thing, aapka bulawa for the rocket ship will not just come like that. Uske liye you have to do some kind of work. Yeah? And that is you. So you have to really, I mean, the only job, and I keep telling my daughter, the only job that you have at the moment is to study. And that is what you would be measured on. So please do that with all faith and with all grace. Yes? If you get a chance to climb on a rocket ship, don't ask which seat. Thank you.
So that was a very engaging set of panel and, I mean, really good advice, practical advice for the audience here. We have been speaking a lot about Gen Z. Now let's hear from them. They might have some questions for all of you. Do we have questions for the, yes, this gentleman here. Can we have a question from him? Please introduce yourself. We'll take 3 questions because of the paucity of time. Yeah, please introduce yourself and also direct, you know, if there's any speaker you want to address the question to.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. First of all, welcome to Presidency University.
Thank you very much.
And myself, Ramesh Abhiyan. I'm a last year BCom student. And I have a question. In today's world, the traditional hierarchy leadership models may not be applicable for the Gen Z. So what are the changes that a leader can make in their management system to encourage or build trust towards the Gen Z?
A very fair question. I mean, there is a distaste for hierarchy. Anyone wants to take it up? Do you want to? Or
everybody.
If anyone who wants to take it up? Okay.
They used multiple choice questions, so they're taking multiple speakers as well. See, I think what we have realized, you basically learn leadership when you're parenting a child, ask me honestly, right? So what I at least realized, and that's what I try to follow at least at my work as well, there's no point in telling people this is how you should be, this is what you are, and this is where it is. Just do what you're doing and people will observe and pick it up from there. So the way the leader is how the next set of people will also start behaving, and that is how the culture gets built. So if you ask me, that the best way for a leader is not really go and tell people do this, do that, and so on, because that's what mostly a manager does. But just kind of do the right things and people will just follow it and do this. And for that, to observe that, you need to be in office.
Okay, I think his question was also about how organizations are cutting down the hierarchies where Gen Z also gets access to leadership. So anyone who would also?
Giving it a try, don't hold me back for that. Okay, so predominantly, Asia is a very hierarchical organization. Yeah, you can call that. It's a hierarchical organization. And thanks to globalization, that this has changed a little bit because everybody has started to understand that it's more about a collaborative effort and not necessarily being more dictating or directing in a certain way. Yeah. Having said that, sometimes depending on situation, that cannot be negated as well. It's good that there are leaner organizations, which also means that there are higher competitions. Yeah, something that you could demand because of a tenure that I have finished X number of years, give me this position, will not come in, which means it's all on you. Yeah. So this also brings in another element of how much of learning and upskilling and contribution we are making, how diverse we are in skills and all of that, and complete thing there. When it comes to the leadership style, my personal style is collaborative. And there is a leadership style called as a servant leadership, which means that you serve your co-workers and your team with the intent of their success. Because if they succeed, then I succeed. Then I will have somebody who can replace me, because that will give me the bandwidth to do something else and follow my passion or take up some other role in assignment and get more challenging in life, right? So that is something that I believe in. That is something that I practice. That is also something that I feel is also gaining a lot of exposure within the country. It's predominantly not necessarily an Indian way of looking at it, but this is something that all of us embrace very well because we feel that there is a merit in doing that. So the adaptation that the leaders have to do is get more collaborative, ensure that there is a clear messaging, because when you clearly call out what's needed and how and what and why, I think clear dialogue and transparency in communication always helps. And ensuring that it's more about learning in the process. There are times when I will not be able to think about an aspect that you may bring in. How open I am and flexible I am, because the objective should be the organization benefit and our learning and not anything else between us. Yeah? So togetherness should be practiced in our behavior every day as leaders, having a very open mindset to being questioned and challenged, because it's all, somebody told me a few years back, it's very good to have smart people in your team. Half the work is done. Yeah? And I believe strongly in that. So that's my reflection on what I feel leaders need to have and the organizations need to embrace more to ensure that all of us sustain equally within the organization.
Okay. Ma'am, I have another question.
I will have to give chance to someone else also, please. Yes, please.
Well, good afternoon, everyone who are present over here. It's quite an honor to actually stand over here and ask a couple of questions to you guys. Actually, this question is, I want to ask directly to sir over there. First and foremost, sir, before... Sir, first and foremost, before asking the question, there is one stat I want to put across to the panelists. Is that in India, it's around 58%. We see like most of the Gen Z employees are facing like burnouts. They tend to burn out a lot. And also in other countries, like especially in UK and in Australia even, we see it's more than 38% of burnouts are happening. So can you tell me like how the organizations are actually moving forward to tackle this kind of situations?
I'm sure there will be more wisdom sitting away from me. I think there is something very intrinsic and very extrinsic, right? When I say intrinsic, life में उतना load मत लीजिए जितना लेने की ज़रूरत है. You just take as much as you want to really take, and that's advice that I want to give largely. Don't spread yourself out so thin, and don't commit yourself so thin across different places that it starts to harm you, right? Which is more a coaching, which is more a self-reflective moment for each one of us. The other thing is enterprises are really looking at burnouts more critically and very acutely. And hence, you would find mental well-being, and a lot of programs around that picking up, where you are allowed and where you're encouraged to speak not to specific people, but people around. So, how do you create these groups, allyship, etc., where you could go and speak to people, talk about things, and discuss, right? What we really find is, as organizations, as we move along, we tend not to hear, not to listen. We are more like, just passing along, right? But taking that moment and emphasizing that those moments matter, and how do you create structures in organizations for these moments to matter and be considered, is something that every enterprise is looking at it, right? You will have a lot of forums where people are talking about mental well-being. Yeah. And it's not just among students, but even professionals, even workers, even mental professionals, who are dealing with work around counseling, right? Everybody is going through that at the moment, right? But for you specifically, take the load. Your payload should be what you can manage, right? And the moment you feel like you're beyond that payload, stop, analyze, reflect, and shed. Make sense? Thank you.
Shweta, would you
Yeah,
want to add?
I know you had the question for Mino, but I was itching to kind of, respond to this. See, there's a word called discipline, right? And I'm talking, and I'll be very candid with all of you on this question. I have seen in a lot of situations where, especially Gen Z, it is for all generations, but I see prevalence of that maybe a little more in Gen Z, is that, you know, there are employees who would come to office, let's say at 10 a.m., start from home at 10 a.m., at that point in time, traffic is really bad, reach at 12, enjoy the lunch, you know, for an hour, go and probably spend time with the colleagues, take a walk, start the work at 2 p.m., right? And obviously, the work has been designed in a way that you need to put at least 10 hours or 9 to 10 hours. So then they are sitting in the office till midnight. And then they are saying, we are burnt out, right? It's very, very important. And I firmly believe work-life balance is very personal for you. You need to decide, like Mino rightly said, what is the boundary? What you should not, looking at your health, right? So you should really define it. And there is no organization who will continuously to ask you to work for 14, 16 hours. Today's world, nobody. There are phases. Like he said, if you want to be on a rocket ship, if you want to be the most strategic project, you have to probably burn the midnight oil for a period of 2 months, right? And you're consciously doing it because you are learning in the process. You have an opportunity to write in your resume that you worked on XYZ project. You got an opportunity to work with some of the brightest minds in the organization. There is already something that you are getting. But if you are somebody who's lazy, and like the example that I gave, you are really not disciplining yourself, because when you move to the corporate world, discipline is something you need to bring in. If you truly want to enjoy the fruits of a corporate career, you have to get up. Like she said, you know, she's there in the office at 7:30. So for that, I'm sure she gets up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. in the morning, right? You decide how your day looks like, and you design it. And be ready that there are times in which you have to stretch. Beyond this, if there is any situation in which you are really getting stretched out to the level of I would say stop it before you get burnt out. But if it reaches that stage, you should really call it out. You should have a conversation with the leaders and managers, and today's world, managers are really very, very receptive to that. But like I said, it cannot be the other way around, right? So I just wanted to make that.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, and it's, Shweta, I mean, very critical to bring the other side as well to the fore, right? So, I mean, that was a very engaging panel. We had a lot of learnings, a lot of takeaways. So thanks a lot, everyone, for sharing your insights. And we'll have a quick token of appreciation. I would like to call on stage India Today's Managing Editor, S. Sahaya Ranjit, and Presidency University's Registrar, Dr. Samina Noor Ahmed Panali, on stage to felicitate the guests.
I thank the wonderful panel, Mr. Mino Thomas, Mr. Taruna, Ms. Shweta, and Mr. Pashupati. I think that was indeed a very engaging conversation. We had a lot of insights. Being from the HR background myself, I have a lot of colleagues who are from the placement and the HR background. I think that was thorough fed from the corporate, and we have a long way to go to learn and put them into practice, application-based. Thank you so much. Please accept this token from the family of Presidency University. A plant. Thank you.
Can we please settle down? For the next session is going to begin shortly. Yes, there's one more session. You've got enough learnings, is it?
Hello. See, please sit down back. Come front row, please. You can come to the front row.
The overall hiring experience. We will discuss how AI is transforming the recruitment process and what candidates need to know before applying for job roles. Everyone, let's welcome our set of experienced panelists. We have Sunil Chemakotil, Country Manager, Adecco India. Sunita Cherian, Chief Culture Officer for Wipro. Shantanu Chakraborty, Director of HR, Amazon India Stores, People Experience and Technology. Everyone, let's give them a warm round of applause. Moderating this session is my colleague, India Today's Managing Editor, MG Arun. Welcome, everyone. MG, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Well, I should say that you are all a very set of nice and obedient students and keen Had it been in my age, we would have really stormed out of the hall. Okay? So I think, yes, we have overshot the time a bit because the sessions were interesting. The speakers took their time. You listened and you applauded. And I think the next session is equally interesting and important, and I think it is one of the most important sessions that we have here. And we have got a very stellar, panel out here of experts who would deliberate on this subject. So can we have some silence in the room? Yes. So we had a very informative keynote session earlier today on how AI is disrupting businesses and how academic institutions and job aspirants need to shape themselves up to take up this challenge. I think the stage is here. We have a lot of things happening here. Excuse me, students? Yeah, I think this is the first step of discipline that comes along with, which we need to catch up when we work. And I think the last session had a very detailed explanation from some of the experts on this. And I think you are getting a taste of what corporate life would be. You will have your own freedom, but your freedom stops somewhere when we are courteous and when we have to extend ourselves, stretch ourselves a bit, not much. You have a sumptuous lunch waiting for you, I'm sure. Your friends waiting for you, but sometimes you need to adapt to such situations, and this is one. Let me give you one interesting example of how AI is disrupting. Me and my colleagues are from the media industry. Recently there was a news that an Italian newspaper came up with an entirely AI-generated edition. And people were curious to know, when you say it's an entirely AI-generated edition, is it just the news? Is it just the reporting, design? Because all of them can be generated using artificial intelligence. But it was not only that, it was also the opinion pages. So you can even generate an opinion page. You can have a nuanced stance, You can express your views. So the AI has been programmed in such a way that it can have a view on its own. So it is a very, very scary world out there. I mean, it can immediately put my colleagues Sonal, Ranjit and me out of business right away. So that is the world we are stepping into. And let me first take this question to Ms. Sunita Cherian, who is the Chief Culture Officer of Wipro. How should job aspirants, and we have plenty of them sitting out here, navigate through the new environment where AI technologies would be increasingly applied in the recruitment process?
Thanks for that, MJ. And I just saw what happened right before this panel. So if you're still sitting here out of absolute disgust that you were forced to, my recommendation is make way for lunch. It's okay, right? Because if you believe that it's going to add any value to you, if you believe there is some sense in what we are speaking here, you may continue to sit. But like MG just said, it's a scary world. And I will repeat, it is a scary world, right? Because what you grew up with, what you thought will make you successful, what you saw the previous generations doing in terms of just putting in that hard work, having that relentless, enthusiasm to get up every day, go to work, make a decent living, is probably not going to be the same recipe of success for all of you. Because like Arun just pointed out, if organizations are increasingly using AI to be disrupting this world, you should be equally prepared to, one, just know how AI can be leveraged by you also, right? So it's not always that corporations have the upper hand. It's also you in terms of how do you really navigate this world of AI. So just the basics, understanding on what are the tools, what are the kind of applications, what's the kind of platform, how do you really leverage those so that you're more prepared? And you heard a lot in terms of, skilling and upskilling and reskilling, and what you learned in colleges is no longer going to be relevant when you enter the corporates. Believe me, a lot of that is true. And if you really need to be successful, then you have to have some close friends in the AI technology itself to kind of give you that upper edge. So what is that upper edge going to be? Be aware that companies are going to be using AI in terms of just application tracking. Companies are going to be using AI because there are so many resumes that they get. There has to be some kind of a technology which kind of weeds out the ones that they're not interested in and just picks up the ones which are relevant to the job description that they have. So how do you kind of get smarter in terms of making your resumes a lot more aligned to what that job description is really wanting to understand, right? How do you really understand what is that AI technology really seeking in your resume? So both from how do you create your resume to make it probably more selectable by the AI tool? How do you understand what those job description and those keywords are which you have, but of course not flakily have, but actually get down into really having it. So for example, the same AI can actually probably do an assessment for you where you understand where you seriously stand against that so-called skill and what is a kind of gap that you need to bridge to kind of be really an ace player in that skill. Secondly, when you come to the resume, when you come to the interview itself, it's not necessary that you have to have human beings on the other side, right? It could be a bot. And if it is a bot, then how do you really respond to the kind of questions that that bot is really asking you? And simple things, like, how do you really come across in the interview? Are you looking bored? Because those are the cues that actually that bot is trained to kind of filter out the ones who are interested and the ones who are not. So when I said if you're really not interested in sitting in this seat, well, there is some AI tool that can actually catch that, and actually filter you out from that interview process if they believe that, you don't have what it takes that the organization really wants. So all I can say, Arun, is if companies are using AI to such an extent as we see today in the recruitment process, as far as the candidates are concerned, you should be equally hungry to learn what those AI tools are and try and outsmart and make that your friend to see how best you can work with AI to kind of counter another AI which is probably on the other side.
Excellent. I think I'll take this question, the same question, to Shantanu Chakrabarti, who is the Director HR, Amazon India Stores, People Experience and Technology. What are your views? What are the things that a job aspirant should look forward to, in this in such a disruptive environment?
I think, am I audible at the back? Okay, so maybe just on a lighter note before I respond to that, over the weekend I was trying to prepare for this session and figure out what I may want to talk about. I ended up watching the new Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie. If you haven't seen it, I think it's called Day of Reckoning. It teaches you how AI can give you jobs. Unfortunately, the bad guys knew the AI out there. The main villain is called the Entity and they use AI. So unless you're headed to that part of the world, you probably want to listen to us more carefully. We'll tell you the other things that can get you jobs in AI, right? But that aside, I think what Sunita said is extremely point on, that from your perspective, the first thing you want to do is make your own online persona as unique and as individualistic as you can. and that would include maybe some of the certifications you're doing, your social media presence, how active you are on LinkedIn, what are some of the elements you're doing there. The second step to that would be how mindfully are you matching onto the skill? So there's a plethora of content out there, but how mindfully are you targeting the skills that you need to develop? Step 3 would be how much are you practicing? Now, I promised myself I'll not sell Amazon out here, so I'll not do it beyond this. But if you wish to, there is a tool called the Alexa Interview Ready skill. You can actually go and talk to it, and it'll tell you, it'll kind of demystify the Amazon interview process, and I'm sure every organization is doing that, right? But it costs you nothing, and it just gives you a better perspective of at least how to prepare for a particular organization's skills, right? And the interview process, and what kind of questions get asked, what is the motivation of those questions, and things like that. So make yourself aware would be step 3. And if all these things are, kind of falling into place, then look around you for what are the sources of information you have to upskill yourself. And today, I mean, in the age that we are in, I'm sure you'll come across enough and more, content. Some of it may be paid content, but that's not such a bad idea to invest in yourself. So just get more, aware, and I think that's the step to take it forward from there.
Sunil, would you like to add to that? Because I think a significant thing, and the students would like to hear a little more about.
Am I audible? Yeah, I think both Sunita and Mr. Shantanu have already alluded to some of the topics which are commonly spoken. But if I look at from the perspective of a recruiter, so what are the things which you all have to build? Take my own example. It took me 30 years to get probably 10,000 connections on LinkedIn, which are meaningful, and I built a strong network of that. Last 3 jobs, I got through my network. Yeah, so that's a power. Of network is a power. So my advice to you all is that there are a lot of things happening in the recruitment space. AI is disrupting the way recruitment is being done, but you will still be left with connections and networks which will help you to know who you are. So you can start early. I have seen new generation with 5 years, 6 years experience having connections more than 20-25,000. Yeah, so they nurture that. You can't dig the well when you're thirsty. You have to dig your well much before when you're thirsty, so that you can use that well to draw the water. So you can't just send a connection request and then ask for a job. If you're already connected and if you're engaging with your network meaningfully, then it's easy for you to send a message and ask for a connection. So that's one aspect of thing which I would recommend this generation to focus on. The other aspects, what they spoke about, how your resume should be modified or written in a way that you don't get blocked out from the AI engine. Now, as we speak, I work for a company known as Adeco, which employs 2 million people world over 60 countries, and we hire more than 1 million people every year. So when in the past we used to have recruiters to hire all of them. Now as we speak, there is disruption. We are having, along with the recruiters, we are having agentic AIs, which are known as recruitment agents, who are doing most of the process. And they have been trained to do certain processes, and if they don't understand your resume, if they don't find relevant keywords in your resume, you will get locked out. So in today's world, you have all the tools available at a click of a mouse. Everybody can carry AI with you. All of you heard about BYOD, bring your own device. Everybody carries your own device, mobiles. This is a time when everybody should carry your own AI. Yeah, so you have a doubt, you just ask it. You want to speak to it, you speak to it. you want to do an interview preparation, you can do with it. There's so many things which you can do. If you haven't tried all the available tools available in the market, on the World Wide Web, in the AI space, I think you are not prepared enough. So it's a time for preparation. Preparation will help you to be better of rest of them who are not prepared. So in this modern world, you have to ensure that your profiles are well prepared and you are well connected. If you address these two, I think you can you can take over AI.
Excellent. These are good tips. Sunita, you are heading the culture. You're the chief culture officer of a very large IT organization. How have you witnessed, the culture shift that is happening, which is also reached this stage because of the big extent to which technology has changed over the years, and with AI being now adopted across various segments of businesses? What is that big culture shift that has happened, and how does, young aspirants like this fit into that?
No, we had a good panel discussion, I think, just prior to this, which talked about the Gen Zs to a large extent. And, the way it's made out by a lot of the literature out there, that these are very different creatures who've suddenly come into the corporate scene. And I can tell you that, when we talk culture, it's also about the coexistence between 5 generations actually working together in the workplace. So right from your baby boomers to your Gen Zs, if folks have to actually get along and actually work together for a common purpose, it's important that the culture is well aligned to the purpose of the organization. So like Arun mentioned, I've been with Wipro for 29 years now. Joined the company from campus, and let me tell you, it was no different then. Because when I joined, I really didn't think I'm going to be spending so many years here, because probably the word loser applied if you were stuck in one company for too many years. You were happening and hot if you just kind of kept hopping different jobs. So it was no different from the same feeling that a lot of you might have today to say that, sticking on with one company doesn't make sense, let me hop. But if that one company gives you what you're really seeking, if that one company is actually aligned to your values and your core and your purpose, then why not? So all I'm trying to reiterate is that with every generation that comes in, the previous generation looks at them as some extraterrestrial creatures who've just landed. But I just want to say that that's the case with every new generation that comes in. They come with some quirks, but finally, at the end of the day, they all have the common objective of, I want to be successful, right? If I've joined this company, I need to join an organization where I wake up every morning, and like your previous panelist said, I want to be going to work. I want to be there at 7:30. I want to be spending time with my colleagues. So if it is drudgery, if it is something which doesn't align with what your thinking is, then definitely leave. But I would say the company or the culture that I'm trying to create and add on to at Wipro is one where we're all aligned to finally doing what we want to do, and there is a larger purpose, because end of the day, the way I look at working in Wipro, and I don't know how many of you know it, but 66 cents of every dollar that we get, that we earn, actually goes to a good cause, because Mr. Premji has irrevocably pledged that much to the trust. So come to think of it, without actually moving my little finger, just the fact that I'm working in a company like Wipro, I'm able to actually give back to the betterment of society is something which works or sits well with my thinking, right? So the culture, I would say, especially in today's world, Arun, is one which is not very different from before, because you do want to work in companies which respect you, you do want to be successful in that company, and you do want to achieve things which will propel you forward. Now, I would say the only advantage that you have, which probably the previous generations didn't have is the advantage of technology. Because today, at the tip of your finger, you're able to get access to a lot of stuff where we had to really struggle from pillar to post to kind of get a complete view of it. You have that at your fingertips. So I would just say that life is probably a lot more easy in terms of access for you. But finally, the choice of where do I continue to work and where do I continue to contribute and what aligns with what I want to be doing in life is the choice that you have to make by joining an organization which actually sits closely and fits in well with your own values is what I would say.
Excellent. Shantanu, yours is an organization which has got a huge number of workforce across the globe, and in India also you have a large workforce. Equally, you are implementing technology, various steps, including your delivery systems, and which makes Amazon, the company it is. How do you see this big threat that is, hanging around, that AI is going to displace a number of jobs? We are already seeing a robotic delivery happening in, Western countries, and so what is the kind of challenge and what is the opportunity in this?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that one, but I think, and maybe the panel before also partially took that because they were talking about, the automation element of it. But if I may just borrow what Sunita was also saying earlier, fundamentally the way businesses think is not changing year on year or decade after decade or generation. They're still here to make a surplus, whether it's for profit or non-profit, but they're still here to make a surplus. And technology is an enabler. So to that extent, actually the introduction of AI, which is surely one of the most disruptive things we'll probably see in this generation, is really about building more efficiency at work, reducing biases, which I don't think we spoke about maybe as much earlier, but there are a lot of human biases today in several parts of hiring, assessment, which probably AI will take away and provide a level playing field to a lot of us. And thirdly, boost the employee experience. At least that's the intent. Now, coming to the more specific part of your question, what does it mean for job reductions? I think it'll again force like the theory of evolution for us to move away from being hunters to maybe being gatherers or cultivators, right? Because so what AI is doing today, or at least we speak of, is taking away perhaps the jobs which have, for want of a better word, the least cerebral requirements, right? Or at least the least EQ requirements. And the jobs that will continue to stay and thrive, at least in the foreseeable future, are what humans excel at, which is making a difference to each other, right? If I could maybe almost interpret it from an HR sense, right? And I don't know if any of you are students of HR, right? But AI will probably help you do attrition analytics, right? It'll take a lot of data and tell you exactly why people have left, where they left, what reasons they gave, which geography, which job family. But the person doing that job in HR is probably going to now have more time to actually work on those reasons and figure out what they can do differently rather than just chase data to do it. So to that extent, in my opinion, AI is actually going to be a great enabler. There will be some jobs that will go redundant, but that's happened over time as we see it. And I think it'll force all of us to move higher and higher up the value chain in the quality and the cerebral and the emotional quotient of the jobs, which can only be a good thing for all of us. So yeah, so to that extent, the only last part I would probably say is, by the way, are all of you generally familiar with AI? Like you've read a little bit about it? Show of hands. Okay. Have you heard of a term called hallucination? Yeah? So what is hallucination? Exactly the type 1, type 2 errors in statistics or OR that you read, right? You make an incorrect inference because you lean too much on your hypothesis. So I think we are still far away from learning through those hallucinations as well that AI models will continue to throw at us. And for want of a better word, I think our jobs are safe for now, so we shouldn't worry too much. We should just keep building on that from what we have, right?
Great. What do you think, Sunil? I mean, what are the ethical questions that arise out of AI, and also how does it impact the job process?
Okay, I have a slightly different take. the big question of will AI lead to job losses? The simple answer is yes. So there will be job losses. It will replace a lot of jobs. If you look at the different revolutions, the first revolution, the industry revolution, when the steam engines replaced, it displaced some jobs. Those jobs are gone. So they moved up the value chain. Then came your IT revolution or a computer revolution. Lot of the typewriters, if you recollect, all of us learned typewriters. At least in my age, we learned typewriters. By the time we came out, it's gone. So those jobs are gone. They got displaced. This revolution is different. It's just not a passing shower. It's a climate change. It's a complete climate change. So we have to be prepared. It not only replaces the easy jobs, the mundane jobs and the repetitive jobs, it also interferes in some intelligent jobs. Earlier it was more of hands and legs jobs which were getting replaced, but now it is intelligent systems which are coming in and replacing you. If I look at 3 C's, the coding, the content and communication is already displaced as of now. A lot of people are struggling, they are losing jobs, and as we speak, world over there are layoffs happening. So I want to keep you all aware that, there are job losses. So how can we address this? We need to be better prepared. We need to move up the value chain. Don't prepare just for getting a job. Prepare for lasting long. As we say that the functional skills or the hard skills are taught, they are taught here. The soft skills are caught. You catch them when you go to a job, but you also need to craft AI skills so that when you are stepping out of the university, you are well positioned. So what do you mean by crafting AI skills? Play with AI, learn with AI, include AI in your curriculum, in your learning journey, so that you are well prepared, so that when you are coming out, you are not going out and going with a big dream that I'll go and I'll do a simple job. No, you will be asked to do a different level of job. So there are new jobs getting created. So the latest McKinsey survey says that around 30% jobs will be replaced or will be displaced. But there are also new jobs creating. But where are those new jobs? We are yet to identify. And who are the people who will take those new jobs? You are all the people who will take those jobs. So you have to be prepared.
Shantanu, what do you think? As these students leave the auditorium today, what are the 3 things that they need to do to keep themselves abreast in this changing, technology scenario, especially with the overpowering presence of AI?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if it's 3 things or just one, and I agree with Sunil that the jobs will keep changing, and probably the rate of change of even the nature of the jobs will be a lot quicker. Maybe jobs that eventually got obsolete over 3 or 4 decades will now see a lifespan of a decade or 2. But just drawing inspiration from this generation in particular and their adaptability of just learning and moving across form factors from what we used to see internet used to be 20 years ago to what it is now. I think the most important thing will be for, and I probably end up borrowing from the previous panel again, know who you are and what you want to do, right? Because don't just latch onto something because it's the buzz thing and that's not where your interest lies. And once you've identified who you are and where you want to be, just make sure you're relentlessly, right? Look up that word if you've heard it. Relentlessly push yourself to stay abreast of what's happening. That's pretty much the only way. And that, I think I agree again with Sunil, that would involve you maybe, reaching out to your, support system to learn, to sign up for, some educational options, probably like universities like these. But also just remember it's a slightly lonely path. You'll have to do a lot of self-discipline and self-learning yourself. But the future is bright. Don't worry about that. You just have to stay in tune with that. That's all.
That's quite optimistic. What about you, Sunita? What is your message to them?
I would say make AI your friend, because, including, giving you advice, giving you, it can be a great shrink for you, because I know of enough and more people who actually have stopped going to a therapist because they feel the biggest therapy I get is by just talking to ChatGPT today. So I would just say make AI your friend. There are enormous possibilities and learnings that you can do by just making AI your friend.
Excellent. So, Sunil, I think you picked up the mic you want.
Yeah, I would just like to suggest or advise that, marinate with AI. Try using as much as possible AI so that you are well prepared. Also, don't forget that, we are the last generation where we'll be managing human beings as employees, You will be managing a set of cyborgs, robots, agentic AIs, and human beings. So you have to be well prepared. So if you don't interact with them now and prepare yourself, your career will face multiple challenges. So you have a great opportunity, and luckily everything is available, as our co-panelists suggested that they are available to test drive, to try it out. So please don't just build your functional or your hard skills, build your AI, you also craft your AI skills, is my suggestion.
And make sure you put enough pressure on your teachers, to give you the kind of skills that you need. Thank you so much, the three panelists, for this inspiring session, and a big round of applause to all of you present here who ensured that you will not go out, but you would want to sit through the entire session, and I think that will really benefit you. Thank you so much.
So let's have a round of applause for all of you as well. Thank you everyone for sharing insights on how new job roles are being created and the new skill sets required. I would now like to call on stage India Today's Managing Editor, Sahaya Ranjit, and Presidency University's Registrar, Dr. Samina Noor Ahmed Panali, on stage to felicitate the guests. And we also have Dr. Anu Sukhdev, Dean for Student Affairs, Presidency University, on stage with us.
Thank you. I would just like to take this opportunity, since we are all here amongst these amazing head of HRs of wonderful organizations across the country and abroad. Presidency University was very recently announced as one of the best organizations to work 2025 for women. So I think since we are talking about innovation, safety, equity, diversity, and inclusion, I think we should thank these amazing HR leaders for sharing insights from the corporates that will definitely add value to the systems and processes that we have in place today at Presidency University, Bangalore. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much, India Today, for this amazing event and for this wonderful collaboration. Thank you so much. And with that, India Today HR Insights comes to a close.
We hope you found the discussions valuable, and we look forward to welcoming you next year as well. It's been a pleasure hosting this summit, and we trust you enjoyed it as much as we did putting it together. Did you all enjoy it? Did you learn from it? I would like to take a moment to express our gratitude to our speakers for sharing their expertise and to the audience for taking time out to join us today. A special thanks to Presidency University for their support in making this event possible. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, students. You may leave the hall, but patiently. All right? Thank you so much. Great cheers to you.